Alright, hey there people in the interwebs, it's me, Brandon Noel. Trying something new. I'm trying a different camera setup, so we'll see how this works. I've done some light non-photo blue pencils on here already, outlining my Daredevil. Now this whole month and previously I had planned to do these videos kind of themed around Jessica Jones and Marvel's Defenders and talk about what I love about Jessica Jones Season 2. But as mentioned in the previous video, I currently don't have internet. Life has been interesting, readjusting to a lack of internet. You know, being a child of the 90s, no internet is nothing new to me. I thought I was going to sneeze there for a second. But in an era when you're trying to run a small business in today's market, no internet is a death sentence. So I'll probably be uploading these videos via my local Starbucks. God bless you, Starbucks. So I've already done kind of the hard work of kind of outlining this with non-photo blue. Over the last couple of months, I've really become a fan of non-photo blue. I always thought, how could that actually work? And with a scanner in the right settings, it actually works. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, non-photo blue is a particular blue pencil that says non-photo blue, and you can do your under skeletal structure sketch, whatever, and when you scan it and your scanner set to black and white, it doesn't show up, and that's really useful. Will Eisner used to use non-photo blue, not that much though. Like if you look at his original pencils, it's like here's a circle, and then everything else would be in pencil. So I use it a lot more than what he did, but I'm definitely a fan of Will. I am very behind on my Netflix Defenders series. Iron Fist was very disappointing for me. That one kind of hurt. And then I had a hard time getting my wife to watch them after Iron Fist. To the point to where I haven't even seen all of Defenders. Defenders was really weak. I've only seen the first 4 episodes, and I love those characters. I love Daredevil. I love Jessica Jones. Luke Cage is I think one of the best Avengers, and I really want to see those characters keep their own series and their own identity, but they need to be in the films. If the Defenders to some degree don't show up in Infinity War, at least Part 2, I will be very pissed off. I know there is strong division between Marvel TV and Marvel Studio with Ike Perlmutter, and my simple solution to that would be fire Ike Perlmutter, a man who I've hated since the mid to late 90s. I kind of blame him for the crash of Marvel and milking the fan base with the variant covers, but a lot of that 90s gimmickry that happened was basically him. And one of the reasons why Marvel didn't survive that period of the crash was he had overextended Marvel to buy Toy Biz, and he was just a billionaire who didn't care much about Marvel. He bought it to piss off a rival billionaire, and so for him to even try to claim any of the brilliance of Marvel is pretty effed up. And yeah, just Google Ike Perlmutter. There's some really messed up stories about him floating around online. There's also some really messed up stories about him in Marvel: The Untold Story, a really good book about the history of Marvel. And yeah, I'm not an Ike Perlmutter fan by any stretch of the imagination, and I would love to see him fired from his current position of CEO of Marvel Entertainment. In fact, I'm so upset with him. Ever since he supported Donald Trump by donating $1 million to Donald, I stopped buying Marvel comics. I haven't read a single Marvel comic since Ike Perlmutter donated $1 million to Donald Trump. And I love Spider-Man. I still see kind of the Spider-Man covers in the shop, and what Dan Slott is doing, I think, is incredible, or was doing. He's now moved to Iron Man. But I'm disappointed in that side of comics, and as a result, I just put my money where my mouth is. I'm not going to support a company that gives money to Donald Trump. As I say that as I'm drawing one of their coolest characters, Daredevil, who I love, and I love his depiction in the series. So yeah, I'll do this colored pencil. So yeah, these monthly videos I have themed out like in advance based on what's coming out. And I wanted to really talk about Jessica Jones, but as I said, I don't have any internet. I hope it's good. I love that character. I love what they've done with her in the show. And I haven't even seen The Punisher yet. I'm very behind on my Netflix viewing, mostly because my current schedule. My wife and I watch TV together, and my current schedule, we haven't had time to sit down and really watch anything. The last thing my wife and I watched was on Amazon. Was it the Miss Maisel, the Marvelous Miss Maisel, the show about comedy? Really well done. That a woman turning into stand-up comedy in like the 60s. This Daredevil costume design, I like it, all right, but the black pieces, and their armor, their bullet proofing, at least according to the show, it reminds me too much of that period of Marvel Daredevil when he was armored. There's this weird period where he's like black costume with little red highlights and silver highlights, and he's wearing this body armor. It always looked ridiculous to me. I always thought, who the heck's that? That's not Daredevil. But oh. This isn't more of a finished piece. It's definitely a sketch. This is the kind of thing I would do at a con. So, but I do love I've seen first 2 seasons of Daredevil, first season of everything, with the exception of Iron Fist. I gave up halfway through. As an Iron Fist fan, that show was not Iron Fist. The only things I wanted out of an Iron Fist TV show was a dragon and that goofy costume. And they didn't give me either of those 2 things. I thought that's Iron Fist in a nutshell. A dragon and the goofy costume. And I couldn't understand why they took the coolest comic booky things out of that show unless it was purely for budget. And if that's the case, then you shouldn't have done Iron Fist. But I also thought, because I had heard an interview where they were talking about how the mask is goofy, and I thought, well, then you shouldn't do superhero shows, because that's what the fans want. We want to see the masks, we want to see the iconography, we want to see the green suit. I think one of my absolute favorite comic book films is Dick Tracy. And the reason why I love that movie so much is because it's unabashedly the comic book. To the point to where the background, the buildings are red, green, blue. It's the 4-color yellow. It's the 4-color printing that the comic book was limited by. They used that to paint the buildings, like stuff like that. Like, I absolutely love that Dick Tracy movie. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I go back to it. I watch it probably once a year. Dick Tracy. Dick Tracy. The Rocketeer. Like, I love those movies. So, add a little flesh tone. That's a yellow. That's the wrong flesh tone. Ba, 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 ba. I'm not erasing, I'm actually using the bottom of my pencil to smudge and kind of spread some of that pigment around. I'm not entirely thrilled with how this looks, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to ink over my I'm going to ink over my pencil. This is not something I normally do, but it sounded fun. So, but I love that Daredevil is one of my favorite characters. Daredevil is someone I was introduced to through the 90s. There was a series of characters, because Marvel had a bunch of cartoons in the 90s, and there was a couple of characters that they wanted to spin off or try to get their own series. And Daredevil was one of those characters who was talked about his own series, and it just didn't happen. But as a result, he's in the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon. They adapted The Blind Shall Lead, which is a very famous Fantastic Four story and Daredevil crossover. It's basically the Fantastic Four lose their powers, and they try to pretend that they still have their powers to keep basically from their villains finding out that they have no powers. Dr. Doom figures it out and comes to destroy them, but Daredevil's the one who steps in and saves the day, and it's a solid introduction to Daredevil. But he also did a crossover in the 90s Spider-Man, and I don't think he showed up in the Hulk cartoon series or the Iron Man cartoon series, but I know Ghost Rider was another one of those characters who they wanted to try to spin off into his own show, and so Ghost Rider pops up in the Hulk animated series and the Fantastic Four animated series, and his cameo in the Fantastic Four series is just shoehorned in there, and it's not particularly any good. And that was my introduction to Ghost Rider as well. Is a character I would become a huge fan of later on. He has a pretty decent crossover with the Incredible Hulk 90s series, like a two-parter, I think. The Incredible Hulk series doesn't get enough credit because that show was really good. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed the first season of Jessica Jones. Probably one of my favorite of the Marvel Defenders was that Jessica Jones series. So I'm looking forward to watching the second season once I get all caught up. I'm feeling bad because this is the second Netflix Marvel series I didn't wait up for midnight and actually watched on midnight. This time I have a pretty good excuse with not having internet. But the first one was The Punisher, and at that point I felt like I needed to finish Defenders, which I guess I don't. I've been told I could have just jumped right into Punisher, but either way I need to finish the Defenders. Just throwing some black here. But yeah, I don't know if this is coming out as well as I would have liked it. This is just more of an experiment, playing around. I've never inked on top of my own like color pencils before. I don't know if I necessarily like it. I'm experimenting with different styles in at conventions. Mostly because I'm trying to get sketches done quicker. I'll say, if you're sticking with me, in the comments, who's your favorite Marvel's Defender? At least on the, either in the comics or in the TV. That's alright, my brush is running out of ink. Forgot how this pen works. Just gonna try to top it off real quick. Hope that didn't too much. That's probably too much. Nope. So yeah, with Jessica Jones season 2, I'm looking forward to seeing Hellcat. I hope they get back to the Jessica Jones Luke Cage romance. That's a big thing for me. I love those characters in the comics. I don't think they'll ever do the anal sex scene that is in the comic book. But we'll see. I doubt it. Not with Disney at the end of the day behind the paying for the shows. I still don't know what's going to happen with the Netflix shows, if they're going to, if they're going to be canceled with the Disney creating its own app or what. But I do love the Defenders. I do love that whole little pocket of the Marvel Universe. So there you go. That's my Daredevil sketch. With that said, I hope you like these videos. I have no idea what I'm doing anymore. I would say please like and subscribe, but I'm gonna see if I can get away from YouTube. I've talked in the past with my discontent of YouTube. I'm trying to be more beat and cheerful. I swear I am a cheerful guy most of the time. Very cheerful guy. So, but I think I'm going to try to. The only reason why I'm still on YouTube is because Patreon doesn't allow me to just upload directly to Patreon. I have to send them the link from a website such as YouTube. I'm going to try to send through my Patreon the link to Facebook. I don't know if that's going to work, but I definitely want to get away from YouTube, mostly because after 5 years of creating content for them, I don't feel like they have my best interest in mind anymore, and that's okay. They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They can put the emphasis wherever they want to, and that's perfectly okay. But at the end of the day, I don't have to do business with a website that is making it harder for me to do business on their platform. So hopefully things are better in the future, but I don't see anyone giving them any kind of legitimate run for their money. I would like to start trying to live stream some of these things through Periscope or whatever, or some of these other live streaming applications. The problem is I'm usually up at like 2 or 3 in the morning doing this, so yeah, most people are asleep, at least in the States. I've tried streaming in through I almost said Imager. One of them cell phone gizmo thingies, and it just nobody was up. So we'll see what happens. And thank you. Please like, subscribe. Patreon.com/Destiny Comics. We do have a Kickstarter coming out in May. Again, please, thank you, or not thank you. If you've made it to this rambling, thank you. Have a good evening, night, or whatever. Bye.